She texted, "You'll be fine without me," as I sent her boss the screenshots she forgot to erase. For a second, my brain couldn't decide which notification to focus on, the little blue whoosh from my email client as the attachments went out, or the vibration in my hand as her message popped up over our old photo on my lock screen. My thumb hovered over her name, over the preview, "You'll be fine without me. I'm sorry." The cursor on my laptop still blinked in the empty. Body of the email I'd just fired off, the one addressed to HR at and VP marketing at, with 23 PNGs attached in the subject line. Concern Ray, inappropriate conduct/misuse of company resources. My heart was thudding so loud it drowned out the low hum of the fridge. My mouth was dry in that cottony, panicked way, and my hands were shaking hard enough that my phone rattled against the cheap laminate table. I didn't open her text straight away. I just stared at the bubble, at the tiny image of her that my phone still used, her in my hoodie on the beach, hair knotted on top of her head, half smile that used to be the first thing I saw when I woke up. I watched the delivered tick under my email change to opened on my laptop screen, saw the little notification that someone from that domain was active in the thread. Adrenaline washed over me in a hot wave, then cold. Somewhere upstairs, my neighbor's kid stomped across the floor. The pipes clicked. The apartment smelled faintly of burnt coffee. My whole world had shrunk down to 2 rectangles of light, and the realization that there was no way to undo what I'd just done. I just hit send on the most nuclear option of my life at the exact same moment. My girlfriend decided to officially end us over text from a hotel bed I wasn't in. We'd been together 5.5 years when I became the kind of person who sends his girlfriend's sex to her boss. If you told me from our first date that this is where it would end up, I would have laughed in your face and probably apologized for swearing. I'm not dramatic by nature. I'm 30M, boring in a way that used to make my girlfriend feel safe, apparently. Or so she said. Olivia is 29F, or was my Olivia, until about 3 months ago. I'm writing this because I haven't really told anyone the whole story in order. My friends got pieces. My sister got the blow-by-blow of the breakup. My therapist got the childhood trauma bits. But the full thing, how you go from building IKEA furniture together to combing through Teams chat logs and choosing which screenshots to forward to HR, doesn't fit into one neat, "oh, we just drifted apart" explanation. We met at a mutual friend's birthday drinks. Not the wild, club kind, the we're all almost 25 and tired kind, in the back courtyard of a bar with fairy lights and ill-fitting benches. I'd been dragged there by my flatmate. Olivia arrived late in a yellow dress and white sneakers, hair in a low ponytail, juggling a bottle of gin and a plastic container of homemade brownies. "Sorry, the train was chaos," she said, squeezing into the space next to me. "I brought sugar and alcohol to make up for it." "You're forgiven," I said, "because there are some sentences you don't need to overthink." She laughed. It was a loud, unself-conscious laugh that made other people smile just hearing it. She started talking about work, about our friend whose birthday it was, about the ridiculous thing that had happened on the train with a guy eating KFC with a fork. She talked fast, but she listened harder. Every time someone else spoke, she turned her whole body toward them, eyebrows up, like their story was the most interesting thing she'd hear all night. I was hooked, of course I was. At the time, she was a junior copywriter at a small marketing agency. I was doing data analysis for an insurance company, which is exactly as exciting as it sounds. She made fun of the fact that I kept spreadsheets for everything, even my laundry schedule. I teased her about taking 20 minutes to word a 2-sentence birthday card. She drank gin and tonics, I drank beer. She swore she hated camping but loved the idea of it. I actually liked camping and hated the idea of group holidays. It was the kind of mismatch that felt charming, not ominous. We did all the cliché early relationship stuff, staying up till 2 a.m. talking about nothing and everything, getting stupidly excited over each other's favorite childhood movies, texting all day about tiny things. Guy next to me on bus is clipping his nails, send help. Our first official date was at a dumpling place where she accidentally knocked her chopsticks onto the floor 3 times, then insisted we had to share dessert for balance. I remember thinking I could look at this face every day and not get sick of it. 2 years in, we moved in together. A 1-bedroom flat above a hairdresser, thin walls, a kitchen that was more of a suggestion than a room. We put fairy lights around the windows, her idea, and bought a ridiculously large couch, mine, that barely fit through the door. We had mismatched plates and a plant we named Jean-Luc Lieffard that we kept alive mostly out of spite. Our arguments were normal back then. Who used the last of the milk and didn't replace it? Whether my gaming nights were too frequent, once a week, or her weekend brunches were basically a cult, they were. Even when we raised our voices, there was this underlying assumption that we were on the same team, just temporarily pissed off. Olivia was always ambitious about her career. She wanted to do big things with words, not just write blurbs for discount tires. I loved that about her. It made my own job feel extra beige in comparison, but it also gave me something to cheer for. When she landed an interview at a larger, more prestigious agency, the kind with exposed brick walls and a beer fridge, we celebrated with cheap champagne and pizza. "I'll be the lowest rung again," she said, sitting cross-legged on the couch, scrolling through their Instagram. "But look at these campaigns. Imagine working on something like this." "They'd be idiots not to hire you," I said. They weren't idiots, she got the job. The place was called Halo Creative. "Vom," I said when she told me. "Shut up," she laughed, shoving my shoulder. "They have kombucha on tap." "Ah yes," I said, the true sign of success. She started the following month, and everything shifted just a little. New job energy, new colleagues, new Slack channels blowing up her phone with in-jokes I only half understood when she repeated them. She started dressing a bit differently, still very her but more polished. Blazers instead of hoodies, lipstick even on tired Mondays. There was one name that kept popping up when she told stories about her day. Elliot. "Elliot says my tagline was the best he's seen from a junior," she'd say, practically glowing. "Elliot wants me on the big pitch next week." Can you believe? Elliot is such a weirdo about fonts, but in a good way. From the way she talked about him, I assumed Elliot was another junior or maybe a mid-level creative, some colleague a few rungs up. It took me a couple of weeks to realize Elliot was actually Elliot Marks, creative director, the guy whose face was on the Meet the Team page, the one quoted in industry blogs. Handsome in that tired designer way, grey at the temples, permanent 5 o'clock shadow, shirts a bit too tight. "Isn't he your boss?" I asked one night, half amused, half curious. She shrugged, mouth full of stir-fry. "Kind of, I mean, yeah, technically, but the structure's flat. Everyone does everything. He's just really good at what he does. He's sort of taken me under his wing." "That's cool," I said, and meant it. Mentorship is good. Young professional me would have killed to have someone higher up give a shit about my career. The first red flag was so small it barely registered at the time. We were out with friends at a bar, and her phone buzzed 3 times in quick succession. She glanced down, and I saw the name Elliot Work light up on her lock screen. She smiled, typed a quick reply, then flipped the phone over, screen down. "Work stuff?" I asked. "Yeah, he's just freaking out about a client presentation," she said, rolling her eyes. "He never stops, it's fine." "On a Friday night." She shrugged. "Agency life, baby. You knew what you were signing up for when you started dating a creative." I let it go. I was trying not to be that guy, the one who gets threatened by every male name in his girlfriend's inbox. Then came the late nights. At first it made sense. Big pitch, new campaign, clients on American time zones, whatever. She'd text around 6 p.m, "Running late, don't wait for me. Love you." Then it became, "Don't know when I'll be home, this deck is killing me." Then sometimes nothing at all until she stumbled in at midnight smelling of beer and expensive perfume that wasn't hers. "Clients?" I asked once, trying to keep my tone neutral, when she kicked off her heels and flopped onto the couch. "Team drinks," she said. "We nailed the pitch. It was amazing. Elliot was like, you carried that whole thing." "That's awesome," I said. "Would have loved to toast to it with you." She smiled, leaning over to kiss my cheek. "You and your old man bedtime," she teased. "We'll celebrate this weekend, okay?" The celebrating kept getting postponed. Weekends filled up with her recharging, sleeping, scrolling, half-watching Netflix, and then getting restless and wanting to go out again. I started to feel like the quiet landing pad she crawled onto between rocket launches, but not the person she took into orbit. Then the phone habits changed. We'd always been pretty casual about picking up each other's phones if they buzzed on the other side of the room. She knew my passcode, I knew hers, not because we'd had some big trust ceremony about it, just because life. "Can you answer that?" She'd shout from the shower, and I'd yell back, "It's your mum, I'll tell her you'll call back." Suddenly, though, everything started requiring a Face ID scan. Notifications went from Slack Elliot, that tagline slaps, to just one new message. Her phone was face down more often. If she left it on the table and I got up before her, she'd swoop in like a hawk, scooping it up with a too casual, "Thanks," even if I hadn't gone near it. My stomach didn't like it, but my brain had a ready arsenal of counter-arguments. She works with this guy. Creative industries are flirty by nature. You know you're sensitive about phones because of dad. Don't project, don't be controlling. A quick sidebar, when I was 13, my mum found an email exchange between my dad and one of his coworkers. It wasn't full-on explicit, but it was intimate enough, messages about how he felt seen by her, about how mum just didn't get him anymore. The fight that followed was seismic. Plates smashed, doors slammed, shrieking. They didn't split then, but the house felt different after that. Heavy. I caught my dad looking at his laptop, the way you look at something that's both a lifeline and a loaded gun. I promised myself I would never become someone who snooped, that if I ever felt the urge to go through a partner's phone, that would be the sign something was wrong enough to just leave. I pride myself on being reasonable, rational, not ruled by jealousy. So when Olivia started guarding her phone like it contained state secrets, I didn't look. I told myself trust meant giving her the benefit of the doubt. I told myself if she was doing something shady, it would come out eventually anyway. Eventually came because of Microsoft Teams, of all things. I was working from home one Tuesday, yay hybrid life, while she was at the office. The iPad on our coffee table chimed, a weird little bloop I didn't recognize. I glanced over, expecting a calendar reminder or something. Instead, a notification banner slid down. Teams, Elliot Marks, still thinking about you under that conference table. I froze, like literally spoon halfway to my mouth, cereal dripping back into the bowl. My brain did that thing where it tried to pretend I hadn't seen what I'd just seen. Maybe it was a joke, maybe it was a missend, maybe he meant something else by under. Then another banner. Olivia Chen, stop, someone will see. Then, Elliot Marks, I'll behave, for now, wear that green dress tomorrow, the one that kills me. My hand moved before my brain did. I snatched up the iPad, thumbed it awake. Apparently, at some point, Olivia had logged into Teams on it and never logged out. Our shared device had become an accidental window into her work world. I know I could have backed out right there, closed it, called her, asked, hey, what's this about? Calm voice, mature conversation. Instead, I tapped the message and it opened the whole chat thread. It wasn't just work flirty banter. It was a full-blown emotional and physical affair, threaded through with feedback on ad copy and campaign timelines like some fucked-up braid. I scrolled. There they were, texting during meetings, making fun of clients, sending photos, sometimes of a layout she'd done, sometimes of her in a bathroom mirror with a caption like, do you approve of this for tonight? He'd reply with things that made my stomach drop and my face burn in equal measure. Descriptions of things they'd done in cabs, in stairwells, at offsites. The conference table reference, not a metaphor. They joked about almost getting caught by a junior designer. My hands were cold. I felt like my skin didn't fit right. Each flick of my thumb down the chat showed me another moment of them weaving the story of us against the world that she used to have with me. Olivia, he thinks I'm working late again. Elliot, you're not exactly lying. Olivia, you're evil. Elliot, you love it. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for my cereal to turn into mush. Long enough for my lunch break to theoretically be over. When my vision stopped tunneling, I did two things I'm still not sure how I feel about. One, I took screenshots. Not of everything, it was months worth of chat, but of key moments. Her confirming she was dating living with me, him acknowledging he was her boss, conversations about slipping away during work hours, joking about billing their hotel room to a client. Two, I closed the app and put the iPad back down exactly where it had been. I didn't confront her that night, or the next, or the one after. I rehearsed conversations in my head, starting calm, escalating to shouting, and then said nothing. Some of it was cowardice, some of it was shock, some of it was this weird paralysis where I kept thinking, if I say it out loud, it becomes real, and I don't know how to be a person in the world where this is real. Instead, I started doing what I swore I'd never do. I became an investigator, quietly. I checked bank statements. There were charges for bars and restaurants I'd never heard of. Often on nights she'd come home tipsy and claimed it was with the girls. Hotel bookings under her card and then reimbursed by work, matching the dates of strategy retreats she'd mentioned in passing. I checked her Instagram. Photos of cocktails with captions like late nights, bright minds with his hand just in frame. I checked myself in the mirror and saw someone I barely recognized. Tired, jumpy, jaw always clenched. At some point, I broke and told my sister, Zoe, we're close-ish. She lives 2 suburbs away, works in HR for a different company. We met for coffee and I word vomited the whole thing into my cappuccino. Jesus, she said when I mentioned the team's messages, do you have proof? I slid my phone across to her with the screenshots I'd moved to a locked album. She scrolled, eyebrows climbing higher with each one. Okay, she said, wow, that is incredibly unprofessional. And shitty, on both their parts. I'm so sorry, Dan. What do I even do? I asked. Part of me wants to pretend I never saw it. Part of me wants to show up at Halo with a blowhorn. Another part wants to just pack a bag and leave before she gets home. As your sister, she said, I want to say blowhorn. As someone who works in HR, I need to point out this is also a workplace thing. He's her direct superior. Yeah, I said. She said he took her under his wing. Guess we know where that wing was. My jokes were getting darker, I'd noticed. Zoe winced. It's complicated, she said. It's consensual from what I'm seeing, but it's still a huge power imbalance. Companies get sued over this stuff. Clients too, if they're paying for extracurriculars. Do I have some kind of moral obligation to tell someone? I asked. Or is that just revenge brain talking? Both can be true, she said gently. You don't owe her employer anything. Your first responsibility is to yourself, your mental health, your boundaries. But if they're misusing company resources and he's sleeping with direct reports, that's not nothing. Think about what outcome you actually want. Do you want her fired? Him? Just acknowledgement. I didn't know. I just knew I couldn't unknow what I knew. That night, Olivia came home buzzing from another late one. She kicked off her heels and flopped into my lap on the couch, wrapping her arms around my neck. She said, pressing her forehead into my shoulder. Longest day ever. You have no idea how good it feels to be here. I stiffened. The words were so familiar and suddenly so tainted. Do I asked before I could stop myself. She pulled back. What's that supposed to mean? I took a breath. My therapist, new, found in desperation after the team's incident, keeps telling me, laid with the feelings, not the accusations. So I tried. I feel like you've been somewhere else lately, I said. Like your head and your heart are at Halo and I'm just background noise. You're always on your phone. You barely look at me. I found some stuff. Her eyes narrowed. What stuff? Messages, I said, my voice shook. On the iPad, from Elliot. Color drained from her face, so fast it was almost impressive. Then, just as quickly, it came back in a hot flush. You went through my messages, she snapped. They popped up on the iPad, I said. You're logged in. I wasn't snooping, they just appeared, and then they kept appearing. So you read them, she said. Yeah, I said, there was no point pretending otherwise. I read them. She stood up, packing in front of the couch. Wow, she said, laughing without humor. Wow, I cannot believe this. I never thought you'd be that guy. What guy? I asked, anger starting to bubble. The guy who notices his girlfriend is sleeping with her boss. Nothing happened, she shot back, too quickly. Olivia, I said, I saw you describing his hands on you. I saw you joking about almost getting caught in a conference room. I saw you telling him you were sneaking out of bed while I was asleep to call him from the bathroom. My voice cracked on that last one. That particular message had gutted me when I read it. The idea of her padding quietly past me in the dark, phone glowing in her hand, just to whisper to someone else that she missed him. She stopped packing. Her eyes were shiny now, but hard. So what, you screenshotted everything and sat on it, she said, just waiting to throw it in my face. I didn't want to believe it, I said. I kept hoping there was some explanation that was my girlfriend has been lying to me for months. But you keep coming home late, smelling like him, telling me I'm paranoid when I ask questions. What was I supposed to do? Trust me, she said, voice rising. You were supposed to trust me. Jesus, Dan, this is exactly why I didn't tell you anything. You go from 0 to courtroom in 2 seconds. Didn't tell me anything, I repeated, incredulous. What exactly were you going to tell me? Hey babe, just so you know, I've been fucking my boss in hotel rooms paid for by his corporate card. No biggie. Also we use the conference table sometimes, pass the salt. Don't be vulgar, she snapped. Sorry, I said, is my language the problem right now? She sank into the armchair, burying her face in her hands. For a moment she looked small, young, not the composed, I run campaigns Olivia, but the girl who'd shown up late to her birthday with gin and brownies. When she spoke again, her voice was muffled. I didn't mean for it to go this far, she said. If you've ever been on the receiving end of that sentence, you know how it feels. Like someone took all the weight of what they did and reduced it to a runaway shopping trolley. How far did you think it was when he was literally inside you? I asked, then immediately regretted the phrasing, but not the sentiment. She flinched. We connected, she said, before anything physical. He sees me, Dan. He gets my ideas, he pushes me to be better, he makes me feel wanted, I supplied bitterly. She looked up sharply. Like I'm not boring, she said. Like I'm not just some guy's girlfriend who makes dinner and listens to him talk about spreadsheets. That one landed. I'd worried about being boring my whole life, being the safe one. There was a part of me that understood the thrill of someone exciting pointing at you and saying you, but understanding doesn't equal condoning. You could have talked to me, I said, quieter now. You could have said you felt unappreciated. You could have broken up with me before you started, whatever this is. Instead, you wanted both, the stability and the thrill. I was the safety net you crashed onto after your connection went home to his wife. Her head snapped up. Don't bring his family into this, she said. They're already in it, I said. They don't know it, but they are. We went round and round like that. She cried. I cried, though I tried not to. She apologized in that vague, I'm sorry you're hurt way. She acknowledged mistakes were made like she was talking about a botched campaign. Every time I asked a concrete question, how many times? Where did you ever talk about leaving me? She squirmed, deflected, or said she didn't see how that would help. By the end of the conversation, we hadn't resolved anything. We were both exhausted. She went to the bedroom. I slept on the couch by choice. I stared at the ceiling and thought, I can't live like this. I won't. The next week was weird. She started acting extra nice, making my coffee in the morning, sending me memes during the day, initiating sex with a sudden enthusiasm that made my skin crawl. Meanwhile, every time her phone dinged, I felt like my insides were being scratched with a fork. She insisted she'd scaled things back with Elliot, that things were strictly professional now, but still refused to show me a single message. We have to have some boundaries, she said, like I was the unreasonable one. Zoe, predictably, was not impressed when I told her this. She's rug sweeping, she said, minimissing, and he's still her boss. So even if she means it when she says it's over, the power dynamic is still fucked. You going to live with that? I don't know, I said, which was true and also felt pathetic. The tipping point for me wasn't some big new discovery. It was a tiny, stupid thing. I was cleaning the kitchen one morning before work, bleary-eyed, when Olivia's work laptop pinged from where she'd left it on the table. I know, at this point, you're probably thinking, just stop opening things. But curiosity is a nasty, insistent thing. I glanced at the screen. A Teams notification hovered there. Elliot Marks booked us a suite this time. You earned it. Same excuse for finance. Olivia, lol, you're terrible. Yeah, client immersion. You better actually let me sleep, though. The timestamp was from after our big confrontation, after she'd sworn things were scaled back. I didn't screenshot that one. I just stared at it until the banner faded, then calmly closed the laptop. Something in me went very, very quiet. It's a weird feeling that click into place, like your heart has been screaming this whole time and finally gives up and lets your brain take over. I realized 3 things in quick succession. 1, she wasn't going to stop. 2, she wasn't going to tell the truth, as long as lying benefited her. 3, I couldn't be with someone whose version of working on it was get better at covering tracks. I made 2 sets of plans then, one for my personal exit, and one for what Zoe half-jokingly called my ethical revenge. The personal exit stuff was the usual, finding a new place, bless Sydney's rental market, mentally cataloguing which furniture was mine versus ours, looking up how joint leases work when one person wants out, emotionally detaching in small ways, not sharing every funny thing from my day, pulling back from reaching for her hand on the couch. The other plan, that's the part I'm still wrestling with. On one hand, I had evidence that a creative director at a big agency was sleeping with his direct report, misusing company funds to pay for their trysts, and creating a hostile environment for anyone else who worked with them and didn't want to be part of their little power couple. On the other, I had that evidence because I'd, however accidentally at first, browsed their private conversations and then deliberately screenshotted them. There's no way to dress that up as noble. In the end, what tipped me was a new hire. Olivia came home one night complaining about a junior copywriter. She's so timid, she said, opening the fridge. I feel bad for her. Elliot's being extra charming with her. You know the way he gets. It's the same pattern. Takes them out for drinks, mentors them, picks apart their work like he's sculpting them. I just wanted to shake her and be like, girl, run. Every hair on the back of my neck stood up. Do you ever feel weird about that? I asked, knowing what he's like. She shrugged, pulling out a yogurt. It's complicated, she said. He's not a predator. He doesn't force anyone. He's charismatic. If I don't sleep with him, someone else will. At least I know what I'm doing. That's fucked, I said before I could stop myself. She scowled. You wouldn't understand, she said. Anyway, can we not talk about work? I'm exhausted. She walked away, spoon in hand, leaving me with that sentence echoing in my head. If I don't sleep with him, someone else will. The next day on my lunch break, I opened my laptop and drafted an email. To HR@halocreative.com, VP Marketing at halocreative.com. Subject, concern Ray, inappropriate conduct / misuse of company resources high. I'm writing to make you aware of a situation involving creative director Elliot Marks and one of his direct reports, Olivia Chen. I kept it factual. No name-calling, no editorializing. Dates, screenshots attached with the more explicit parts blurred but the context clear. Acknowledgement of their relationship, references to him being her boss, jokes about billing hotel rooms to a client, her confirming she was in a long-term relationship with me. I didn't mention our fights, my feelings, the nights on the couch. Work didn't need my trauma, they needed facts. I stared at the draft for 3 days, tweaked phrases, hovered over send and backed away, talked to Zoe again, talked to my therapist. Are you doing this to protect others or to punish her? My therapist asked, annoyingly on point. Both, I said, if I'm honest. Is there a world where you choose only to leave without reporting? She asked. Yes, I said, and there's a world where I say nothing, and some 23-year-old junior ends up in the same position, feeling like her career depends on letting her boss treat her like a perk. Which one can you live with? She asked. So on a random Thursday afternoon, sitting at our kitchen table surrounded by bills and an empty mug, I hit send. The email whooshed away. I sat there breathing like I'd just sprinted, hands clammy. And because the universe has a fucked up sense of timing, that's when my phone buzzed in my hand. Olivia, you'll be fine without me. I'm sorry. I stared at the words, then at the tiny indicator under my sent folder showing the attachment had been opened. I opened her text. Olivia, you'll be fine without me. I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore. I love you, but I'm in love with him and I need to be honest with myself. I'm so sorry it happened this way. There it was, honesty, finally, in the same breath as abandonment. She followed it with another message before I could respond. Olivia, I'm in Melbourne for the week for work. When I'm back, I'll stay with Jess so you can have the apartment to yourself while you figure out what you want to do, Ray, lease, etc. If you want to talk before then, I can call. If not, I understand. I know I'm the worst person in the world right now. I hope one day you'll see I didn't mean to hurt you, I just needed to follow my heart. I laughed, actually laughed, out loud, alone in the kitchen. It wasn't a happy sound. Follow your heart. Meanwhile, her heart was also following him into hotel suites charged as client immersion sessions. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. What do you even reply to something like that? Good luck with your adulterous career. Cool, I just CC'd HR, buckle up. In the end, I wrote. Me, thanks for finally being honest with me. I'm glad you're not coming back here. I'll arrange my stuff. Take care. Then I turned my phone off. The fallout came faster than I expected. The next morning, my personal email pinged again, this time from an HR manager, Halo Creative. They want to know if I was available for a call to clarify aspects of the information provided. There was also a note that said, we take this kind of allegation very seriously. Your identity will be kept confidential to the extent possible, but please understand that some details may make it obvious to the parties involved. Yeah, I muttered to myself, you don't say. We spoke that afternoon. I repeated what I knew, how I knew it. They asked if I was comfortable with them using the screenshots in an investigation. I said yes. There was something cathartic about hearing phrases like breach of policy and conflict of interest applied to what had felt like such a personal, vague betrayal. A few days later, I got another email. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We can't share details of personnel matters, but we want you to know the situation has been addressed in line with company policy. Within a week, Olivia called. My phone lit up with her name. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but morbid curiosity won. What did you do? Were her first words, no hello. Her voice was a mix of anger and panic. In the background I could hear muffled conversation, footsteps, airport, office. I told your company what their creative director was doing with his direct report, I said. The rest is between you and them. You sent them our private messages, she hissed. Dan, what the fuck, that was between us. I actually barked a laugh. Between us and your boss, in your company's chat system, on their time from their devices, using their money, sure. You've destroyed my career, she said. I didn't force you to fuck your boss on the clock and joke about expensing your fuck hotel, I said, words sharper than I'd intended, but also exactly what I meant. Actions have consequences. I'm just the poor bastard who had to watch the replay. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing. He got fired, she said finally, voice small. They called it gross misconduct. I got put on leave pending further review. People are looking at me like I've got a scarlet A on my chest. Do you feel good about that? No, I said truthfully. I don't feel good about any of this. I feel like shit, but I feel slightly less like shit knowing that the person who abused his position doesn't get to keep doing it to the next you. He didn't abuse me, she snapped. I wanted it, it was mutual. That's the saddest part, I said, that you think that makes it okay. You're vindictive, she said, voice hard now. You could have just broken up with me. You didn't have to ruin my life. You texted me that you're in love with him and then presumably rolled over and told him the same thing, I said. You made your choices. I protected myself and yeah, maybe other people at your company. If that ruins your life, maybe it wasn't built on anything solid. She started crying then. Big gulping sobs, it twisted something in me. Even after everything, some reflex wanted to comfort her. I gripped the phone tighter instead. I loved you, she said. I still do. Part of me does anyway. I never wanted to hurt you like this. You wanted to have both, I said. The stable boyfriend at home and the exciting boss in hotel rooms. You wanted me to be fine without you while you got to be in love with him consequence-free. That's not how this works. She didn't answer. I hope one day you stop letting men in positions of power define your worth, I added, surprising myself. But I'm not sticking around to watch you learn that lesson. I'm done live. Don't call me that, she whispered automatically, some old, petty argument about nicknames surfacing even now. Goodbye, Olivia, I said and hung up. The grief came in waves after that. There were practical waves. Sorting out the lease, we broke it, split the penalty, dividing up furniture. She took the coffee table and most of the decor. I kept the big couch and Jean-Luc Lieffard, changing addresses, cancelling the joint Spotify account. There were emotional waves, crying in the supermarket when I walked past her favorite yogurt, deleting hundreds of photos from my phone, waking up in the new place reaching for someone who wasn't there. I started therapy properly, not just crisis sessions. I went out with friends more. Sometimes I spilled the whole story, sometimes I just said, we broke up, it was messy, and let them guess. Mutual friends split along predictable lines. Her work friends mostly stuck with her, at least publicly. Our uni friends split the difference, checking on me via DM while liking her vague Instagram posts about growth and owning your story. I tried not to take it personally. Zoe asked me once, after a couple of months, if I regretted sending the email. Sometimes, I said, on nights where I can't sleep and my brain runs the highlight reel of her face when I said, I told HR. I feel like I became this petty, vengeful version of myself I don't like. And other times, she asked. And other times I remember that she was never going to tell the truth, I said. She was going to rewrite the story as we just grew apart and then I followed my heart to this man who really gets me, and everyone would have nodded and called it romantic, and he would have kept doing the same shit with the next junior writer. So no, I don't regret making sure there's at least a permanent record somewhere that says, no, this was fucked. I don't know if there's a clean moral to any of this. I'm not here to say, always report affairs to HR, or never look at your partner's messages. Honestly, I'd love to live in a world where those questions never come up. What I do know is this. If your gut is screaming, don't let someone shush it by calling you jealous or controlling while they carry on doing exactly what your gut is reacting to. Black circle cheating doesn't happen by accident. It's 100 little boundary crossings, rationalizations, and selfish decisions stacked on top of each other. By the time there are hotel suites and conference tables involved, it's not a mistake. It's who they've decided to be. You're allowed to protect yourself. That might mean quietly packing a bag and leaving. It might mean documenting patterns in case you need them. It might mean sending an email that changes more lives than just yours. Only you can decide what you can live with. Sometimes, late at night, I reread that last text from her. You'll be fine without me. It was meant, I think, as some kind of twisted reassurance. I'm doing you a favor by leaving. She was right, though. I am fine without her. Not in the thriving, new me, blessed way Instagram would like, but in the I can look at myself in the mirror and not feel like I'm betraying myself by staying with someone who lies to me way. It's a quieter kind of fine. Less shiny, more sustainable. I don't know what Olivia's doing now. Last I heard through the grapevine, she left Halo and is freelancing. Elliot apparently tried to sue for wrongful termination, and then quietly disappeared into another city's agency scene like these guys always do. Maybe they're still together, indulging in the fantasy that they're star-crossed lovers brought down by a bitter ex and prudish HR. Maybe they imploded as soon as the secrecy and corporate credit cards were gone. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. I've started dating again, tentatively. Coffee dates, walks in the park, awkward jokes about being rusty at this. I'm upfront in a gentle way about what I've been through, not because I want to scare anyone, but because it's part of the context of who I am now. Someone who has seen what happens when you ignore your own boundaries in the name of being chill. If you're reading this and you're in that limbo, you've seen something you can't unsee, heard something you can't unhear, and you're debating whether you're overreacting, consider this your permission slip to take your own perceptions seriously. Maybe that means a hard conversation. Maybe that means an exit plan. Maybe it means a carefully worded email to someone's boss. Just know that when someone texts you, "You'll be fine without me," while their entire double life is sitting in a folder of screenshots on your desktop, you're allowed to believe them. And you're allowed to decide that fine without them is better than broken with them every single time.